Amen. I'm going to share from Exodus 3 today. And it will require me to do it in parts, and I'll start the first part today. Exodus chapter 3. It's the second book in the front. Exodus 3. In the context, this is God speaking to Moses in an audible voice for the first time. At Mount Sinai. And he's speaking using the environment. And he uses the environment to portal through his audible voice. And as a burning bush is ablazed in front of him, God speaks in the environment. And he tells him to take off his shoes because he's standing on holy ground. And as he's speaking to him, he wants him to understand that before you and I have dialogue, I want you to first understand the principle of worship. And him taking off his shoes was symbolic. Is that all the stuff that you've walked through in life, don't bring that in my presence. Be willing to step out of that when you come before me. The stuff that you're dealing with, your responsibilities, the tasks that command your attention. When it's his time, he wants you to step out of that. So he speaks to him in the environment. And when he speaks, he tells him, I'm responding to you, not for your sake, but I'm responding because I've heard the cries and the prayers of my people. And he says, I'm going to come down to them, and I will deliver them from the hands of the Egyptians. And I want to take them from Egypt into a place that flows with milk and honey. Which leads us to verse 11. Well, we start with 10. He says, come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Verse 11. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring out the children of Israel out of Egypt? So he said, I will certainly be with you, and this shall be a sign to you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. Then Moses said to God, indeed, when I have come to the children of Israel and say to them, the God of your fathers have sent me to you, and they say to me, what is his name? What should I say to them? And God says to Moses, I am who I am. And he says, thus you shall say to the children of Israel, I am, have sent me to you. Amen. When God stood before the presence, when Moses stood before the presence of God, he raises the question, who am I? Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? So I want to share today from the thought, who am I? Who am I? One of the unique moments of being in Scripture is that there are times where we can see ourselves in the text. And strangely enough, these individuals has the stage for their life to be on display. And in the moments of their life being on display, when you look at some of the predicaments they found themselves in, some of the challenges they had to face, and even the victories that they walked through, in a very strange and unique way, we have the ability to see ourselves in the text. And God is so awesome that he allows what is happening before us in these pages of life to serve as a mirror, not just of our righteousness, but also a mirror and a reflection of our imperfections. And it is in those moments of seeing the reflection of who we are and our imperfections and our frailties that I'm able to use this as a pathway and a compass for my life, so that it helps navigate me from making erroneous decisions and repeating some of the moments of folly that these faithful men had walked through. We've heard stories time and time again about the life of Moses, as well as seen movies, whether it was the animated movie dealing with Moses or whether it was a timeless classic piece of the actual movie of the Ten Commandments with Moses, ranging from various characters playing a role of Moses, or whether you've heard it in the story of Sunday school or through a brief lesson in Bible study, or whether you have heard different stories from other influential people in your life. One of the things that kind of step out from the life of Moses is that you can never really exhaust all there is to understand about his life, in that he comes from a very peculiar background and situation, whereas he wasn't given a good first start like everyone else. From the time he was born, his life was under attack. Being born as an Israelite, a Hebrew child in Egypt, there was a law that was put forward to murder these boys and these babies. And so from the very beginning, his mother puts him into a basket and puts him down the river. Interesting enough, we read through the first and second chapter how she recovered him later and is hired as a nurse because a Pharaoh's daughter happens to be in the river, and she finds Moses and takes him in. But unable to take and care for this infant, she hires Moses' mother, unbeknownst to her, to nurse him until the full age of maturity. And she decides, rather than executing and murdering this child, I'll bring him into our household. This starts the journey for Moses in a very peculiar way. So he's now brought into the royal house. On surface, this seems like a great idea. And we often think that if our children have the best of everything growing up, then we set them on a path for success. But you can see in the life of Moses, it doesn't always mean just because you give them the best of everything that their life will always point to the direction of success, good decisions, good character, and a good future. Interesting enough, he grows up in the palace, in the royal family, with Egyptians, but he's not an Egyptian. by blood, he is Hebrew. He's in an Egyptian palace, living with the family of Pharaoh, being raised by Pharaoh's daughter, and in an environment that is peculiar to him. He's brought up in the lap of luxury. He has everything at his disposal. But even in this, he still has difficulty finding himself to be a good fit for where he is. He finds himself in a very unusual situation. And though he has servants assigned to him, he has people who picks out what he's going to wear, what he's going to eat. They transport him to wherever he wants to go. This child, growing into his teenage years and into his adult years, has everything that you could possibly want. He has popularity. He has charisma. He has wealth. He also has a future of inheritance extended towards him. He will always be taken care of. He is constantly showered with affirmations, always appealed to, always constantly affirmed. But even in these moments, he still finds himself not fitting in. That even with the best of everything, he runs across several problems. The first problem is he recognizes, I don't fit in. He don't fit in. Because as much on the outside, he adorns himself in Egyptian cotton, in the finest Egyptian linen, and sleeps on the most exquisite Egyptian sheets, constantly having the best of Egyptian food and taught by the best Egyptian scholars. There's a part of him that's still unsettled because there's something in his childhood that does not resonate or connect with his environment. And he recognizes, is though I'm here, I still have this problem that I don't fit in. And though people give him respect, even people understand his position and honor the position, they can't stand him as a person. Because the real truth of the matter is he's really not Egyptian. He can wear the Egyptian clothes. He can put on the Egyptian makeup. He can wear the Egyptian crown. But he still is never going to be Egyptian. And those in the family who are there recognize this. He don't fit in. His eye color, his hair texture, his skin complexion is not like everybody else's. The way that he processes and thinks is different. And though he is in this environment, and though we are above everybody in our society, somehow or another, he's more compassionate than anybody at this table. He seems to care about those whom we have enslaved. He asks too many questions about their day, about their lifestyle, about their living conditions, about their future, about what they're going to do, about their goals. He's too concerned about everybody else when we should be the individuals that should always be catered to. And Moses has this problem that he recognizes that even as an Egyptian, I don't fit in. If I was Hebrew and I walk outside the palace and see the children of Israel working, building up other temples and pyramids and buildings and columns and creating infrastructure for Egypt, even when I speak to those who are enslaved by blood, they still don't receive me. There's this disdain that the slaves has towards me. I didn't ask to be in this situation. I didn't ask to be in this environment. However, that if I go outside and I try to deal and have conversation with the Hebrews, they don't want to deal with me. If I go back inside of the palace and deal with Egyptians, they don't want to deal with me. So no matter what context I find myself in, I can't really fit in with nobody. I am, in the eyes of Hebrews, I am too Egyptian to be around them. And then when I get in the house and in the palace, I am too Hebrew to be around Egyptians. So either way, I can't fit in, and that's a problem for me. Because I can't seem to find no self-identity in no matter context that I find myself in. If I go outside, I don't fit in. I don't see myself out there. If I stay inside in the lap of luxury, I don't find myself fitting in here. And I'm raising the question, who am I? I know I'm really not a blood child of the Pharaoh. I know I am not the child of his daughter. I know I'm not Egyptian. Who my father is, I don't know. Who my mom is, I don't know. I know is I don't fit in here and I don't fit in out there. So who am I? I wear these clothes, but I don't feel Egyptian. I wear the nicest of things, but even with the nice apparel and my makeup and all these things that adorn me and the jewelry and the gold and all of the bangles and the rod and the staff and all these things that I carry with me, even with my entourage of service, I still don't feel like I fit in. And though I am not a slave, I still feel like I'm a prisoner on the inside of this body. And then when I step outside, even though I have freedom, I still don't fit in around them. Nobody seems to be comfortable in my presence. And it's not because of something I've done. It's just the fact that I'm living. And there will be times in our life, in our own journey, we'll figure out there'll be moments and pockets where I just don't fit in. I am too Christian to be around sinners, and I'm too much of a sinner to be around Christians. It's either in one context, I'm either too holy to be around you, or if I'm around Christians, I'm too sinful to be around you. Some kind, I can't find that medium or that in-between or that balance where I just seem to fit in with everybody. If I pray, it's a problem. If I don't pray, it's a problem. If I read scripture, it's a problem. If I sing a song, it's a problem. If I don't say anything, it's a problem. How do I fit in? And so Moses is trying to make sense of this. Who am I? Who am I? And so in his duality within reality, there's this responsibility and allegiance that he should have for the Egyptian lifestyle, but it's conflicting to see other individuals being tormented and injustices occurring. Because every time he sees it being inflicted on someone, all he sees is himself. But here's the psychology. He sees himself as the victim as well as the perpetrator. So as he is out one day, deciding to come outside of the palace and to be amongst the people, he witnesses an Egyptian guard whipping a slave. And this is one of the moments where his life shifts. Because in this moment of watching an Egyptian guard whip and beat a slave, he sees himself in two contexts. He sees himself as the one perpetrating, constantly supporting slavery because he's in the house of being an Egyptian. He benefits from slavery. So he can't say, I'm not for it. He cannot say that I am not a supporter of it. He's a benefactor of slavery. The clothes that he's wearing is because of slavery. But then on the other hand, he sees his countrymen being whipped. So he sees a person inflicting pain, but he also sees a person full of experiencing pain. And so in this moment, what do? Do I turn a blind eye like an Egyptian would do and turn around? Or do I go and run to the rescue of a Hebrew who don't even want to address me at all anyway? But what he realizes, I have to do something. Even if I choose not to address it, that's still doing something. Even if I don't speak up, that's still doing something. Even if I walk away, that's still doing something. So he's cornered, and all of a sudden, with every whip and every lash, it becomes a trigger. It's much more than just the injustice of whipping a slave and causing them to stay against their free will. He is now triggered all the way back to when his mom was forced to put him in the river. The reason my life is at an uneven keel even right now is because the Egyptians were forcing our people to kill their own babies. And I wouldn't be in this position right now if it wasn't for these Egyptians. I lost out on a relationship with my father. I lost out on a relationship with my mom because of these Egyptians. Yes, I got these fine clothes. Yes, I got the best of everything, but I'm conflicted. I'll give all that up if I can go back and have my life totally different. And there's this conflict because now every time he sees the Egyptian god whip the slave, he flinches because he knows that's me that you hate. And the only reason that it's not me on the ground being kicked and whipped is because Pharaoh's daughter pulled me out of a river. But what I really realize is that when you look at me, you have that same hatred towards me as you do my brother that is a slave. And there's this conflict and there's this anger that is welling up on the inside. And now he moves, not rationally, but he moves off of anger till he strikes the man and he kills him. His emotion drives him to respond. Who am I? I am one that is supposed to perpetuate the vision, the name of the house, the line of royalty, and I just killed who's supposed to be somebody amongst our people. But I'm not Egyptian. And I thought, even when I ran to the rescue and I reacted, and I thought I did what was right, I thought that the Hebrew slave would pat me on my back and would say, thank you for saving me. Thank you for stepping in. But they looked at me. They didn't embrace me. They didn't say thank you. There was no consolation. So I'm standing there with a dead body at my foot and a Hebrew slave that looks just like me, that won't receive me. I don't fit in. So he immediately begins to bury the body. So now it's time to flee. I don't fit in. And whenever I am in a context where I feel like I can't find my place, the first thing that is instinctive for us is to flee. No matter how much you wanted that job and that work environment, the moment you really get in there and you realize I don't fit in here, the first thing you're seeking to do is not change the culture. I want a way out. People don't leave jobs because the work is too hard. People leave jobs because of supervisors and coworkers. The number one reason why people want to quit is not because of pay. It's because of the environment. And if I don't fit in, I'm ready to flee. People who have stayed on a job much longer is not because they've been compensated well. It's because they're in a good environment. Now, they may complain about the wages, but the people keep them there. So the moment you feel like you can't fit in is the moment you're ready to flee. When this is not a good space for me, when I feel conflicted on both sides, I don't feel like I fit in over here, and I don't feel like I'm fitting over here. I feel like I'm caught in between the two. I'm ready to move. I'm ready to back away. I'm ready to run because I don't find any safety here. I don't find any peace over here. This is stressful. This is frustrating. This has anxiety. This is depressing. I don't find a place for me, and the only thing I can do is run. And when you're in between two places and you have no footing, it is very uncomfortable to be in that place. And the only rationale for you in that moment is to run. It's to run. It's to run. I don't know where I'm going. But long as I'm traveling, I feel free for a moment. So he runs. At the age of 40, he leaves everything. He leaves everything behind. And for the first time, he has to try to live life on a whole nother level. At the age of 40, he ain't no spring chicken. He's a little seasoned now. He's 40. And he's on the move. He goes from being in a lap of luxury to now being destitute where he has nothing. You go from living in a palace to now you're living in a little tent in the desert. In the desert. For the first time now, he had to figure out where I'm going to get my water from. For the first time in his life, he had to hunt and to kill and to skin and to clean his own food. For the first time, he had to know what it was like to miss a meal because he ain't caught nothing to eat. For the first time, he had to know what it was like to go without water until he was able to draw some from underground. He had to know what that was like. So you're talking about 40 years old? When no one ever trained you to learn how to live. They only trained him how to lead. He was never trained to live. He was trained to lead. And so now at the age of 40, where some people, his good years has passed, now he is invited through life's challenges. Now you have to learn how to live. You have been trained consistently by the best of how to lead, how to stand, how to talk, how to carry yourself, how to put on a show. Regardless of what you feel on the inside, at least we'll make sure the outside of you looks presentable. You can put on a good show. You can fool everybody. You can play the part. You will never be Egyptian, but you can act like you're Egyptian. You can fake like you're Egyptian. You can stand like an Egyptian. You can pronounce like an Egyptian. You'll never be Egyptian, but you can at least fake the funk until you get there. And so, at the age of 40, he is now, for the first time, learning how to live. But he's learning how to live without nothing. He's literally starting over. So the next 40 years, from age 40 to 80, he goes from being the most popular person in the region, as well as a fugitive, to now he goes to a person of obscurity. And at the age of 80, going around Horeb, or what we know now as Mount Sinai, God had been trying to get his attention for over 40 years. And it comes a time where God then uses your environment to rattle you, to get your attention. If you don't seek him the way he wants to be sought, God will use a very unconventional way to get your attention. Even if you've been skillful for 40 years running and dodging and ducking people, you can't outrun God. And so after 40 years of successfully outrunning and hiding and being elusive and evading capture from men, he could never outrun God. And God finds him in a very unusual moment while he is tending to cattle. At the most unexpected time, he disrupts his pattern and speaks through an environment. Where will you be as you're running from God? Where will you be when he disrupts your pattern and your plans, and he'll speak to you in a very unusual way? When he does, the first invitation is to approach me with worship and be willing to step out of the person you've been. He tells him, take your shoes off because you're on holy ground. This is the same saying I've been walking around. Last time I've been walking around here with these goats. Because if you look at stuff on the surface, you miss it. The place doesn't make it holy. My presence does. And you must be willing to step out of the same thing that you walked in. Don't bring that to my presence. When he gets in his presence, he has already had a past and a problem of not fitting in, of fleeing. But now God speaks to him and tells him, you got to learn how to forget. You got to learn how to forget. You got to learn how to forget. You got to deal with that because that's been a problem. You got to deal with that. That's a problem. Moses, you fled because you didn't fit in and because you had a failure. And you felt like the most appropriate thing for you to do is run. But when you ran, even into a different region, you brought your problems with you over here to Mount Sinai. You may have relocated, but you also packed up your pain, your problems, and your issues and your predicaments, and you brought them right over here to Horeb with you. You thought because you moved locations that you would be able to leave your past behind you. It is still there, but you also brought pain with you. You've packed it. Made sure it's been folded up. You made sure you put it in your luggage and you brought it with you. And just because you didn't pull it out of your luggage don't mean you didn't pack it. It is with you. It took it everywhere you went. When you moved from tent to tent, you brought your pain with you. You brought your problems with you. And you brought your predicament with you. And the only thing that has moved was the place. The problem is still the same. The predicament is still the same. And the pain is just as fresh as it was 40 years ago. Fleeing doesn't deal with the predicament, the pain, and the issues and the problems. It only puts it on pause. All you did was put it on pause. And now God says, you 80 years old now. You done spent the first half of your life trying to figure out who am I. And you spent the second half of that running. You spent 40 years trying to avoid dealing with your pain, your problems, and your predicament. There's enough. I'm ready to deal with you now. But I'm only speaking to you because I want to deliver my people. The same place, and people you ran from is the same place I've been hearing prayers and calls and pleas from. And the same people that you're running from, the same people you wanted to avoid, the same people you wanted to disconnect from, and the same people that you wanted to be done with, I want to use you to go right back. I am now inviting you to embrace the very same thing you were trying to escape. But I'm not doing this to mess with you. I'm only doing this because the people need to be delivered. But you're raising this question, who am I? Take a look at verse 11. Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, that I should bring the children of Israel out of Egypt? Moses has a major problem here. We have all found ourselves running from something. Here's the problem with running. When you're dealing with predicaments, pain, and problems, you're always good out the gate running. The challenge is pain can outrun you in terms of distance. You may get a lead in front of it. You might seem swift in the very beginning. Just because you take off the blocks extremely fast don't mean you can win the race. Eventually, your pain will outrun you and overtake you. For Moses, it was 40 years. For 40, in fact, it's longer than 40 years. He started running in 40, but he'd been dealing with problems, pain, and predicaments for 80. Pain can go the distance. Can you? We're only fast at running from it. But we don't have the endurance to outweigh it. So whenever you don't want to deal with it, it runs after you and deal with you. So he realizes, I'm confronted with something I didn't want to face. I want to use you in a major way. But you got to go back to the same place you've been running from. In fact, the place you ran from, you're an outlaw. You're a fugitive, which means if you come back, you stand the risk of being executed for capital punishment because you murdered someone. You got a past. You're full of failures. You disgraced the name and the house that you lived under. And you thought we forgot. Because for 40 years in the desert, no one said your name. For 40 years, no one talked about your issues. For 40 years, no one asked you where you came from. In the desert, no one asked you what you like, who you used to date, what your issues were. For 40 years, you created this new you and buried the old you. But the old you that you buried never died. It was still alive. You're not supposed to bury the living. You only bury dead things. And you buried yourself alive. And before I set my people free, I need to first learn how to set you free. And the starting point is to confront the very thing you fled. I'm telling you, it's about them, but you got to deal with you first. The very thing that you don't want to look back at, that's the very thing I want you to stare at, and let's deal with it. I'm telling you to go back and deal with Pharaoh and tell him this. Moses' response is classic Trinity. The previous verse says, I will come down and be with you, and I will set my people free. Then he says in verse 10, I want you to go to Pharaoh and tell him, I'm sending you to Pharaoh to free my people, my people. My is capitalized in your Bible. He tells him, I'm going to send you. I'm going to come down, and I'm going to send you. I'm going to come down. I am going to come down. I'm going to come down, and I'm going to send you to my people. He says, his response, verse 11, how am I going to go? Who am I to stand before Pharaoh? Who am I to stand before Pharaoh and tell him that I should be the one? Say, let my people go. Who am I? Who am I? He's making all of this about him. And that's always been our stumbling block. Because when it comes to dealing with pain, dealing with our past, our predicaments, and our problems, we can't seem to get past the fact of me. Because he still can't get past the fact I was put in a basket in the river. He can't get past the fact while some Hebrews died in the river and I was rescued. He can't get past the fact, why was I selected to be in the house of Pharaoh and raised with the best teachers, with the best of food, best of clothes, best of everything? Why? Then why did I step outside that day? And why did I see somebody being tormented? And why did I step in? And then why did I get mad? And why did I lash out? And then why did I fail? And then why did I run? And why am I here? And why do you want to use me? Why is it am I here? Who am I? And then when I stand before Pharaoh and I tell him that you sent me, and I tell his children that the God of their fathers sent me, they're going to ask me, who is the God of mine? Who should I tell him sent me? What am I supposed to say? When they raise this question. It was a response that I never even thought God would say. And every time I look at it, it's so confusing to me. Because it ain't even deep. It's not thunderous. It's not gigantic. It's tell him I am. I am who I am. Tell him I am sent you. What else? Like, is that enough? You're asking me to go back and face the very thing I fled. I got to go back and deal with my issues. I got to go back and deal with my issues, Chris. In order for me to be really used by God, I got to go back to the very thing that I walked away from. That's counterintuitive and it doesn't feel right. I got to go back. I want to be successful. The very thing I walked away from, I got to face. If I'm going to be useful in the hands of God, I can't be useful out here in a deserted place, isolated by myself, running for 40 years. I thought I was safe out here. I thought no one would know my name out here. I figured no one would bother me out here. I figured I could just live life on a whole nother level, on a whole nother trajectory. I could start anew. I could do some things different. I could just start off fresh. I may have to struggle a little bit. I may have to redesign my life a little bit. Some things have to require a sacrifice, but no one will know me. No one will understand the pain that I went through. No one will understand my past. No one will understand my predicament. And I can create the whole new life that I wanted, but God will interrupt me even when I'm trying to start something new to say, no, you got to go back and deal with that old first before I give you something new. How long will you run? For Moses, it was 40 plus years. How long will it take you for you to go back and deal with the same thing that you've been running from? Because you can't be free, neither can my people until you do what I've called you to do. You figure because you're on the other side of that mountain, you free. Because nobody talks about what you went through, you free. Because it's not a center of conversation, you free. Because ain't nobody bringing it up, you free. Because ain't nobody looking at you sideways no more and talking about you and gossiping. Ain't no more tweets, ain't no more texts, ain't no sidebar conversation. You free now, right? Because ain't nobody throwing it up in your face anymore, you free. Because you don't have to look at it anymore, you free. You don't even get good sleep at night. You relocated, but you don't get good sleep. Because every time you hear something in the night of the desert, you still wondering, like, are they coming for me? And when someone that is nomadic moves across the desert and they see me for the first time and they really stare into my eyes, I'm wondering, do they even know about my past? Do I say my name is Moses or do I say another name? So it's not a trigger. I'm very popular from where I came from. I don't want people in my business. I don't want them to know. So in this new phase of my life, I don't need a lot of friends. I want to keep my circle small and tight. Because expanding my circle creates a vulnerability that I am not willing to try. Because that means I got to let people in and I ain't ready to do that yet. Because I don't want to let nobody in because I ain't let myself out. So not only does he not fit in, not only did he flee, not only is he dealing with this issue that he wants to forget, but now he's also dealing with the issue of fear. He's dealing with the issue of fear. Who am I? Who am I? Who am I to go? Who am I to go? I don't see myself like you see me. You're telling me to take my shoes off and step outside of myself. I took my shoes off and I'm in your presence now. You got me at a place where my feet is bare. I've come before you bare. I'm exposed now. I'm exposed. And now you're telling me that I'm the one to be used to deliver people and set them free. I'm still a slave. I can run, I can move, but in here I'm not free. I'm not in shackles and chains visibly, but my mind and my heart, I'm not free. And with all of my issues, and with all the stuff that causes me to feel shackled and chained, you want to go use me to free somebody else who is. Who am I? Who am I to be used by you? Here's something interesting. The point that God was pushing is not about you asking, who am I? Rather, you're asking the wrong question. It's not about who am I? Who is he? When he tells you he wants you to go back and deal with that, you can't even look at your past because you're still looking at you. He said, I want you to go back. Let's deal with your past. You making, here we go. You still talking about you. Who am I that I should? I never told you you had to do it. I said, I'm going to come down. And that's the part that Moses missed. He said, I'm going to come down and be with you. And I'm just sending you on my behalf. But Moses is still talking about what he can do. I don't know if I can do. I don't see how you're going to use me. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this. I don't think they will listen to me. I will try, but I don't think I can do it. He's making everything about him. Just like when God tells you to deal with your past, you're still making it about you. Every time he wants to use you, you're talking about what you can do, what you cannot do, what your limits are, what your capabilities are, what your weaknesses are, what your strengths are. You're making everything about you. Won't you let God be God? And if somebody raises the question, who's going to do it? Just tell them, I am sent you. I am who? I am the one that delivers. I am the one that sets free. I'm the one that lifts up hands. I'm the one that is encouraging. I'm the one that fights your battle. I am the light of men. I am your source. I am your strength. I am your way maker. I am has sent you. And you're trying to go back and deliver people, and you ain't free yet because you're still making it about you. And every time God wants to use you, the lingering question that runs in our mind is, who am I? I asked one of my sisters the other day. I said, I wonder if you can sing. I think we can use another extra voice on the praise team. Let me hear you sing. I've heard you sing in passing when no one was listening. Just do a little something. Give me a little snippet. My sister looked me in the face and said, I can't do that. I can't sing. I said, I've heard you sing before in passing. This is why I'm coming to you now asking you to do it again. I can't sing in front of people. I am too shy. I can't do this. And in that moment, the purpose is to invite you to sing to bless people, but she couldn't get past her. Now, when no one is looking, and when she thinks no one can hear, she'll sing. But the minute you ask her, I can't. You're right and you're wrong. Because the moment you accept that you can't is the minute you can accept God can. And the moment you feel like you have no strength is a prime opportunity for God to show you that you're going to rely on mine. Now you can get out the way. The moment you felt broken is the moment I can show you can be healed. And I'll move you from being healed to being whole. So we'll pause there.